Hey, what's going on everyone? Axel here. Today we're going to talk about the rumor of a Super Nintendo Classic Edition and if I think it's actually coming. So let me start by saying that in my last video I broke down why Nintendo discontinued the NES Classic Edition in my opinion. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it below in the description so you can check it out. This is sort of a follow-up to that video. A lot of what I'm going to say here ties into that video, so make sure to check it out if you haven't already. And I thought I would make a follow-up because a lot of people seem to like my last video. It got a lot of views, so here I am doing a follow-up. And I'm thinking I'll do one more video at least on this topic, talking about all the scalping of the NES Classic Edition that's going on. So if you want to check that out, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter. So Polygon released this article with a rumor that Nintendo is deep in development of a Super Nintendo Classic Edition, and I'll link that article in the description below as well if you want to check it out. Essentially, an employee there, a very well-known reputable employee apparently, who has prior to this leaked what came out to be true rumors about the Nintendo Switch. He's saying that they are deep in development of Super Nintendo Classic Edition, and that I believe the article mentioned that the console would be expected to be out this Christmas. Now, I have to say, first of all, I don't believe yet that this is true for a lot of the reasons I stated in my previous video. Like I said before, check that video out if you haven't, but essentially in that previous video I talked about Nintendo and their business philosophy and where they want to go with their business going forward. I think they want customers to focus on the Switch. I don't think that they want to introduce this type of console that's going to cannibalize Switch Virtual Console sales. So I don't think this rumor is true, and despite it coming from a source that has given us true leaks in the past, I don't think it's true. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we'll see what happens, but I right now don't think it's true. A couple things. If they're really going to make a Super Nintendo Classic Edition, why would they discontinue the NES Classic Edition? It doesn't really make sense. The whole reason that Nintendo is giving that now seems to be that, hey, we canceled the NES Classic Edition because we're going to make a Super Nintendo Classic Edition. And they say that as if they're the same thing. NES games are very different from Super Nintendo games. The age range, the target market for those systems is quite different. The NES people are going to be a little bit older, obviously, as that is an older console. Now, a lot of it is going to be the same mix, but it's not like people would only be interested in the Super Nintendo Classic Edition and wouldn't also be interested in the NES Classic Edition. It doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of consumers that would want the NES Classic Edition only, and not the SNES. It just doesn't make sense to say, hey, we don't think we're going to come out with the Super Nintendo Classic Edition and that's going to be our new better version. It's not a better version, it's completely different games. It's not comparable like that. So this reason doesn't make any sense to me. Nintendo's logic of we're not going to make the NES Classic Edition anymore because we're going to make the SNES Classic Edition now, it doesn't make any sense. That implies that the SNES Classic Edition is a better or upgraded version of the NES Classic Edition, and that's just not true. These are completely different games. These are completely different products. The SNES Classic Edition is not an upgraded version with new ports of the same games. It's going to have completely different games. Now, a couple of the games might be the same. Maybe they put the Super Nintendo port of Mario 3 on there that was also on the NES Classic Edition, but all in all, for the most part, these are going to have completely different games. They're going to be completely different products. So that line of logic doesn't make sense, and that leads me to believe that this isn't actually happening. If this is true, and they are coming out with the SNES Classic Edition, I think we'll see the same thing that we saw with the NES Classic Edition. We'll see a limited release. We'll see them shipping some ridiculously low amount to stores, 2 or 3, and they'll use this thing again just to build hype for the holiday season, just to build hype for maybe the release of Super Mario Odyssey, to build up more hype for the Switch. I still don't think Nintendo wants to release these things on a mass scale because it's going to cut into their virtual console sales. They want consumers to buy a Nintendo Switch and get their virtual console, their retro games that way. Because if they buy a Switch, they're going to not only buy those virtual console games, but they're going to buy other things. They're going to continue to give Nintendo their money over a period of time. And I talked about this again in my last video, but if you buy a Switch, you may buy those virtual console games, but you're also going to be giving your money to Nintendo for years and years down the line as they create and release more and more games and more things for the Nintendo Switch, along with the accessories for the Switch, which are more very profitable for Nintendo. If they sell that you just as Super Nintendo or NES Classic Edition, you're giving them your $60 or whatever they price it at, and you're not giving them anything else. And this kind of links me, like, you're going to give them your $60, but there's no future purchases. You're not going to continue to give Nintendo your money. That's why I don't think they're going to do this. Now, this leads me into one theory I do have. The one thing I think that will make sense if they actually are doing this, the only thing that really makes sense is if they're not going to come out with an SNES Classic Edition, but they come out with some sort of TV box, maybe some kind of virtual console box. I don't know what they call it, but essentially what would make sense is if they released some kind of just TV box that allowed you to connect to the virtual console and buy your games one at a time. Sort of like Nintendo's version of the Steam box, something like that. Just a box that will allow you to buy these games one at a time. But what I don't think Nintendo is going to do, again, is give Nintendo fans a box that's going to give them a deep discount on the virtual console games and give you access on a wide scale to every one of these games without having to go through and buy Nintendo's hardware. There's still a company that wants to be hardware first. They don't want to go third party. They don't want to just be a software company. They want to be a hardware company. They want customers to buy their hardware. So I don't think they're going to go in that direction. But if they do, that's one idea that I think could make sense, because at least with a TV box, they would get more money down the line. They would get additional purchases for possibly years and years to come. Maybe they release an NES box that only lets you buy more NES games. Maybe they do a Super Nintendo box that only lets you buy more Super Nintendo games. Or maybe they just release one box that lets you buy all kinds of games. Super Nintendo, NES, N64, maybe GameCube if they release GameCube Virtual Console. Maybe something like that. Again, though, I don't think they're going to do any of this. I don't think any of this is true. I think they want to focus on the Switch. But if they do it, that's something that might make sense. Now, one thing that people are saying, and a lot of people on the internet, I'm surprised at how many people on the internet are saying this. And I talked about this again a little bit in my last video, but a lot of people are saying that they canceled the NES Classic Edition and they're going to re-release it because of hacking, because they want to prevent hacking. They want to produce a new emulator box that is not so hackable. I explained this in my last video. Again, I know I keep referencing that. I'll stop saying that in a second, I promise. Basically, Nintendo, I don't think is concerned about it. A lot of people think Nintendo's all crazy about hacking and that they're going to lose a huge chunk of sales just because a few select video game nerds, no offense to any of you guys that do this, but a few select video game nerds are going to hack their system and put the whole NES library on it. Guys, you have to understand who this product is marketed towards and what the casual video game market is like. They're not 95% of people who buy this thing are not going to do that. I mean, how many people do you know in your personal life that actually would know how to do that, or would take the time to do that, or have the patience to do that? I sure don't know very many people. It's very possible, and maybe it's easy, but most people are not going to go through that. They're not going to do that. It's too inconvenient for them. The convenience factor, the fact that it's from Nintendo, the fact that it's collectible, the fact that it's easy is why people are buying this. It's not, they're not going to buy this. Most people, 95% of people are not going to buy this in order to hack it and put the whole NES library on it. And if those types of people want to do that, there's so many ways for them to do that. There's Raspberry Pis. You can put NES ROMs all you want on your phone, on TV boxes. You can hack old consoles like original Xboxes and Nintendo Wii's. There's a million ways to do this, and the fact that you can put the whole NES library on an NES Classic is not a deterring factor in Nintendo. It's not like this emulation problem is going to get any worse. There's far easier and more accessible and cheaper ways to put all the NES ROMs on your computer, or device, or just play them in general if you want to. This is not a reason why Nintendo is doing this. And besides, even if they make a non-hackable version, they're not stupid. They know that it's going to get hacked eventually. They can try to make it as unhackable as they want, but eventually people are going to hack that thing. And again, like I said before, I don't think that this is a big concern for Nintendo. As we saw with the Wii U's been hacked like crazy the past year, and they have not updated the system software for the Wii U since the beginning, since I believe January of 2016, in order to try and stop any of that. They don't care. So I don't think that's a reason why it's coming. So that's good. That's about it for this video, guys. I just wanted to follow up because a lot of you seem like you enjoyed the video. My last video anyways got a lot of views. So yeah, that's my thoughts, guys. Go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you think, but I still don't think this is going to happen. And if it does, there's going to be some huge catch to it. It's either going to be very limited quantities, or they're only going to put like 10 games on it, because remember, they sell Super Nintendo Virtual Console games for more than they sell NES Virtual Console games. They sell them for about $8 on the Nintendo eShop, whereas NES games go for about $5. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some catch to this. There's going to be a limited release, if it is true at all. But again, I don't think it's going to be true. So yeah, guys, comment below. Let me know what you think. And again, if you want to see more follow-ups to this topic and just other topics, more videos in general, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter. I'll probably, again, as I said in the beginning of the video, do another follow-up, probably talking about all the NES Classic scalping that's going on. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Take care.